Welcome home. I'm Dr. Thema, a minister, licensed psychologist, and sacred artist, and this is Homecoming, a podcast to facilitate your journey home to yourself. While I will provide weekly inspiration and mental health tips, this podcast is not a substitute for therapy. I'm so excited you're on the journey. If you want to request specific topics or share your progress, email me at homecomingpodcast@gmail.com. Also, after you listen, be sure to like, subscribe, and share. Let's begin. Welcome home, Cojourners. I am glad that you're here for another episode of the Homecoming Podcast. And as you are on this journey back to your authentic self, or meeting your authentic self for the first time, our theme for today is increasing your accountability. Increasing your accountability. And many of us, when we are working on ourselves, can make certain declarations, whether internally or to others, but the challenge can be in follow through. It is one thing to be a dreamer or a visionary. It is another thing to be a completer. And it has gotten to the point in the States that we will make these New Year's resolutions. And then about midway through the year, which is we are now a little past midway through the year, all of those resolutions, most of those resolutions are out the window. And so as we think about how we want to continue in this process and journey for the rest of this year, but also for the rest of our lives, it is going to be so important that as I consider my renewal, my transformation, my growth, my life integrity, that I be accountable, right? And so being responsive to myself, to make a commitment to myself, and then to actually do what I say I'm going to do. And many times we can have good intentions, but along with intentions, we need discipline, we need motivation, we need consistency. And in place of those, we can sometimes have procrastination, we can have anxiety, we can have distraction and discouragement. And so I want to really invite you to think on today about the ways that you have been accountable to yourself, to the commitments that you made about the way in which you wanted to live, the ways in which you desire to live. So what are the things that you have honored in terms of those commitments? And what are some things that you had good intentions when you thought it at the time, whether it was at the new year or your birthday, or a breakthrough in therapy, or after you heard an inspiring speech or sermon, or after you read a great self-help book and you thought, okay, going forward, this is what I'm going to do. This is how I want to think or live or choose or love or work or create. And then the motivation dwindled, the intention got away from you, and you know to truly be the fullness of who you are, right? To live up to the capacity that you were born with and that you developed over time is going to take that accountability. And so we want to begin to think about how to increase your accountability. And the first thing is really to consider reminding yourself of your capacity, of your ability. Because sometimes we will convince ourselves that something is impossible, that I just can't do that, that it is too hard. And so when I surrender in my mind, then my behavior, my actions have already been surrendered. And so I want to remind myself of the times when I was able to do the thing I said I was going to do. right? So I have done it before, but I did not stick with it. But that lets me know I can do it. So if your accountability is around your exercise and you say, oh, there was a season where I was waking up every day and working out, or when I was walking every day and that got away from me, or there was a season where I was intentional about my journaling or my writing. And I know many of you are writers and you say like, oh, in this season, I just have not been putting in the time. But there was a time when I did it. Yes. For some of you, you have goals around your spiritual practice. So you may have said, I want to meditate every day, or I want to be intentional in my prayers. And you did it for a season. So when I remember the times that I did it, it is a refresher to me about who I am and what I'm capable of, right? And I have to remind myself that so that I can get back on track, so that I can be mindful that this goal that I have is not impossible for me. I have lived it. I have done it. I have tasted it. I have felt it. I have been it. And so it is not just something for some people out there. It is not just something that I compare in terms of my social arena or people in social media, but in my own life experience, however long it lasted, when is a time or a season that I was more in alignment with the ways in which I want to live. And so that will help me to really remember what is possible for me. So I just want to encourage you to start with this belief. It is possible for me. It is possible for me to live out the thing I said I want to do. The next thing I want to encourage you to do is to actually write it down and to give it some details, to flesh it out. Because sometimes we are vague and we may say things like, I want to be healthier, right? Well, there are many different types of health. There's physical health, there's mental health. And then even within those categories, there are subcategories. And so specifically, what do you mean? If you want to make different decisions in your love life, in your dating, in the area of romance, if you want to show up differently or pick differently in your friendships or your jobs, to be vague is to say something like, I want to pick a job where I'll be happier. Okay, that's a beginning. But then we have to really get into the depths of that, right? To really go in and say, what does that look like? From what I know of myself, what will the kind of relationship I want and don't want look like? What does the career I want and don't want look like? And to spell it out. And then once you write it down and you understand in detail what the intention or the goal is, to set up smaller steps along the way. Sometimes our aim is to the moon. And so, we jump up and we don't feel any appreciation for what we did because we did not hit the moon. So what are the steps that will get you there so that you can know that you're on track? Right. And a part of that means when I'm setting these intentions and these goals, that I make them attainable goals, right? That if I am starting at 0, I don't necessarily want to say starting tomorrow, I'm going to be in the advanced physics class, right? That just really won't work. So, for example, if one of your intentions that you want to be accountable to is going to bed earlier so that you can get more sleep, right? So if currently you're up till like 1, 2 in the morning, and you suddenly say, okay, starting tonight, I'm going to bed at 10 p.m., that might be a big jump for you, right? So I want to set a goal that will stretch me, but that it is attainable so that then I can know I am on track, right? So writing it down will help you to clarify the goal, right? What it specifically looks like, what the steps are that will help you get there. Another important piece when you're writing down this goal and thinking it through is to consider the timing and the schedule, right? It's one thing if I say I'm going to do something and I know specifically what I want to do, but the question is when, right? If it's a daily practice, are you going to do it in the morning, in the afternoon, in the evening? If it is a weekly practice, how many times a week and what days of the week, right? So you want to be mindful about how is this going to work? How is this going to, if I'm trying to cook more instead of eating out or not eating so much fast food, then what does that specifically look like so I can plan for it so that I can make it happen? Another piece that can help with your accountability is finding motivational quotes, inspiring quotes, and putting them up around either your house or your work environment. Some people will put one in their car so that our words, the power of life and death is in the tongue. The words are very, very instrumental. So, in order to help me to stay focused, for me to have motivation and clarity, it helps if I surround myself with affirmation. And that can be visible quotations. It can be listening to podcasts. It can be listening to music, but being intentional about, we call it your eye gates and your ear gates. What am I seeing? And what am I listening to? Because whatever I take into my eye gates and my ear gates is going to affect the way my house, my temple, my body, my brain are functioning. And so I want to feed in things that will edify and inspire and motivate me to stay on task. Yes? Not only that, it will be important to have an accountability partner. So is there in it, and the person doesn't have to have the exact same goal as you, but someone whom you respect, who you want to share your intention with. To let them know I'm making this promise to myself, making this commitment, this vow to myself that I'm going to do this either every day or I'm going to do this many times a week. And so speaking it out loud can give it a higher level of accountability. And then as I speak it, I can check in from time to time, check in with that person, also check in with myself so that I don't look up and say, oh, it's been months since I did whatever that was that I said I was going to do, right? But I want to continue to monitor it, to be tuned into it. And the times when I fall off track, I want to really sit and analyze what happened there, right? So I said I was going to do this, and yet I have ended up in this pit again. Let me reflect. What was I feeling at the time? What was I thinking at the time? What was I dealing with or facing at the time? So that I can have some clarity and some insight about what are the things that are conducive to helping me to live out my intention and to be accountable to myself, and what are the things that make me or contribute to me letting it all go. What are the things that contribute to me saying, never mind, I don't care? What are the things that contribute to me saying, well, I just need this thing that I said I was going to do without, right? So that internal reflection and that checking in can help you to know, even if I have a dip or a detour, or, I skipped a day or skipped a week, that I can get back on track. So that is a part of us operating with grace and compassion for ourselves. And so that when I have grace and compassion for myself, I can get back on track. Now, in order to stay on track, once I get back on track, once you do that analysis, self-analysis of what is it that contributes to me making the choice I don't want to make, then to protect myself from that, I need to structure my time in my life in ways that minimize whatever those things are, right? So you need to be honest with yourself
and know yourself, right? So if you know that if you go to a certain restaurant, there's no way you're going to go there and not order the thing that you love, even though you know it's terrible for you, right? And you know you don't want to eat it. Well, when I know myself and I'm honest with myself, I can say, well, I just don't have the strength or discipline to even go to that place right now. Because if I go there, I know what's going to happen. Yes. And so, I'll tell you a funny one for me when I was in college is, if I was tired, but I was supposed to be reading, reading the textbook, I would say, oh, I'm going to read this next chapter in the bed. Now, you all know, that's self deception, right? Because I would get in that bed with that textbook, and very soon my eyes would be closed, and I would wake up with that textbook in the bed with me. But it's lying to myself, deceiving myself. That's a setup, right? That's a setup for failure, a setup for sabotage, right? And for procrastination. And so, know yourself, be honest with yourself, and then based on your knowledge of yourself, make decisions that will help you to not easily be distracted, caught up, discouraged, into the old traps of your yesterday, right? Then it can be helpful to give yourself rewards, right? We think about this for other people. We think about this sometimes at work or for children, but for yourself. To say, for example, if you're trying to write, if some of you are working on books, if you say, if I do this number of pages this week, this is the way I'm going to treat myself, or this is something I'm going to do for myself that I would enjoy, right? That if I go walking this week, 3 or 4 times this week, this is something I'm going to do, which I would love doing. But if I don't do my steps, right, if I don't do my walking, then I'm not going to give that to myself, right? So it helps to kind of set up for yourself those incentives, those rewards, and in some ways, those consequences, not in a place of like mentally beating yourself up, because that's not helpful. And when we, mentally break ourselves down, then often we feel so discouraged that we think, well, I can't do it anyway, and I'm no good at this. So that keeps us in the pit, right? So instead, I want to reflect, analyze, how did I land there? And what am I going to do differently the next time so this does not continue to happen for me? In terms of telling someone about your goals or intentions, of course, that can be family or friends. And then for others who are having difficulty staying accountable, you may want to consider a mental health professional. So, a therapist, a life coach, a pastor, talking to someone else who can help you to walk through your accountability can be helpful. Some people join groups that are focused on the same thing. Some people have an individual person that they're working with to help them to stay on track. So it is so important that we really operate from this place of integrity to ourselves, clarity within ourselves in terms of what is it I am trying to do. So, in order to be accountable, in order to have follow through, in order to be consistent, in order to endure to the end, there are some mindsets that we want to release and shift away from. So, I want to name them so that when you see it showing up in your mind, when you become aware or conscious that's how you're thinking, then you know I need to shift because that mindset is a block to my accountability, right? So the first one is denial, right? If I don't even acknowledge that I'm off track, right? If I don't even acknowledge that this is not how I said I was going to live, this is not the way I want to live, then of course, if I won't even acknowledge that, I can't shift it. I can't grow, I can't change. And so the theme of this song is tell yourself the truth and see it. right? See the truth and tell yourself the truth. Because once I acknowledge the ways in which I am not living in integrity with myself, that I'm not living in alignment with my own values, then that awakening, that prick can be a way of like, okay, pricking my conscience, my heart, my mind, my spirit to say, okay, sis, let's get it together. Let me get back on track, right? So we don't want to be in denial. The other thing that we don't want to surrender to is blaming everyone else, right? That it's everyone else's fault that I'm not living in integrity, right? That I am not being accountable. So if I said, I wasn't going to eat certain things, and it's everyone else's fault because they keep eating those things around me, right? Or I said I was going to work out, but my workout partner doesn't want to do it. So it's her fault that I'm not working out, right? So we have ways of putting the responsibility for our healing and restoration in the hands of other people, and we want to reclaim them for ourselves. We want to reclaim them. So, if you've been waiting for other people to give you a hookup or to walk you through a process, and you say, well, they didn't do it, so I could never do it. And I invite you to shift away from that and to really own your transformation, to own it, and to be, that's empowering, right? It's very disempowering to feel like I have to wait for everyone else in order to shift anything in my life, right? But to be empowered, to be liberated, to be self aware, right, will give me that capacity to be accountable. And then finally, we want to be aware of the learned helplessness. So some of us grew up in environments where people always made you feel like you couldn't do, whether that those messages came from your parents, they have come from teachers, guidance counselors. It may have been related to gender or race or the neighborhood you were born in. And so, you were kind of given this message of powerlessness, helplessness, and so then it's hard to be accountable because there is a part of you at your core that really believes I cannot, right? And so I want to invite you to locate the source of the lie, right? I want to invite you to really reflect on what are the experiences or people that made you think you could not do, that you could not be, that you could not achieve. And so once I am aware of what the root of that is, then it is easier for me to identify it as a lie as opposed to a truth. So it is what I was told, it is how I was made to feel, but it is not the truth for my possibility nor my capacity. Yes? So as we are accountable to ourselves, the world better watch out because it's going to be some amazing things that we do and amazing people that we are. Not who we will be, but who is, it's already within us to be. We already have it. So we're just going to tap in and utilize what we have. I invite your soul to tell your heart, mind, body, and spirit, welcome home.